So just reconvening and introducing our guests from Zeal Youth Trust, Brittany and Laz. Thank you very much for being here today. The floor is yours.
Kia ora. Ngā tū te raurau, nau te raurau ka ora ai te iwi. Ko te mea tūtahi, ngā mihi nui matua te rangi, ko ia te timatanga me te mutunga ngā mea katoa tēnā koe matua. Te mea tūrua ngā mihi nui tangata o mua me rato he mate haere atu rā. Ki ngā pae maunga o tarirua tēnā koe, ki te awa waikanai tēnā koe. Ki ngā iwi o ati awa ki whakarongotai, ngā titoa rangatira, ngā ti raukaua me ngā hapu o Otaki, he mihi atu kia koutou mō tō aroha me tō manaakitanga i tēnei wā. He mihi atu kia koutou o ngā kaimahi o Kapiti Coast District Council, kia ora mō tō mahi whakamana me tō tautoko mō ngā rangatahi ki tēnei hapori. Ko tai mai mātou e te manawa mahana mo tēnei hui, te kaupapa whakahi te tipu ake o ngā rangatahi katoa. Kia whakapainga kia koutou i te aroha noa te atua no reira tēnā koutou. Tēnā tā tātou katoa. Malo lovely soi fua, mai le mama. My name is Laz and I'm both honoured and privileged to be in the space, especially representing Zeal Aotearoa, our community here in Kapiti, and more importantly, our young people in this district. I live just down the road here in Paraparaumu with my beautiful wife and two gorgeous girls. My oldest attended Kinakina School with my little one currently still there. Been in youth development for the past 20 years, serving young people across South Auckland, Porirua, and now Kapiti. Been in various youth spaces, including mainstream schooling, alternative education, local council, youth camps, youth health, mentoring, leadership development programs, as well as training and supervising youth practitioners across the motu. Learning to love our life here in Kapiti, coupled with our passion for youth development for my wife and I can't state this any more than I have, it makes sense that we care deeply about what happens in our community, particularly for our rangatahi in this district. Again, honoured to be here as I pass it on to my colleague and lead, Brittany Jupp.
Thank you, Liz. Kia ora koutou, morena. My name is Brittany Jupp. I am not from Kapiti. I am from just down the road in Porirua, where I live with my husband and my beautiful daughter, who, forgive me, but I just want to take a moment to honour Joanne's kōrero before. I just thought that was amazing. My daughter is deaf, and just to see people advocate in these spaces was just amazing. And I just could not move on without honouring that. So thank you, Joanne. You were amazing. I know you're gone, but maybe you will listen to this. I am really excited and honoured to be here this morning. I am the National Manager for Zeal. I have been working at Zeal for a number of years now in a bunch of different roles. And I've recently returned from maternity leave. And on my return, I became the National Manager, which in this season of Zeal meant that, and because of my location and proximity, that I, for the last couple of months, have been deeply focused on our work here in Kapiti and supporting Laz and the team and the amazing mahi that has been going on. We are genuinely really honoured for your time this morning. I understand that we've got 20 minutes. We're going to use every second of it. And then we would love to invite some, hopefully some great questions from you all. Something I do want to acknowledge from the get-go is that I understand that we have sat at this table before, and that those moments perhaps haven't gone as great as what we had hoped them to be. I just wanted to table that we are very aware of that, and it is our great hope today that we can share with you some of what we think is amazing delivery for young people across the district over the last 8 months. I keep saying 8 months, but it's actually less than that. We want to share some of that with you, and we want to talk a little bit to the future because we've got some things that we would love to table. Before I do that, I'm conscious that there is a 10-year mark coming up, and as one of the heads of a youth development organisation, I really do, and we really do, want to thank you for your investment in rangatahi over those last 10 years. Not every council does that, and as youth development practitioners, and more importantly, people who walk and journey with rangatahi every day, and people who deeply care about their well-being and see them in the best and the worst moments of their life, we wholeheartedly believe and support and back the idea that local councils have an investment in youth development. And for us, we believe that is so important for young people to know that their local leaders have their backs and acknowledge that they are currently living in a deeply complex world where the statistics around well-being and what some young people across the district and across our communities are facing every day. All of that to say, we genuinely want to say thank you for that investment because we see the impact of it every single day. So thank you. I'm aware that some of you may know heaps about Zeal, some of you may know nothing at all, so forgive me for just 1 minute. I'd love to just share with you a bit of our heart, really, and why we exist. We first came into existence over 20 years ago in Wellington City. There were some horrible things happening on the streets at night for young people, and there was a group of youth workers who came together at the request of Wellington City Council and joined this beautiful partnership. Those group of amazing grassroots youth workers are now what we know as Zeal. Over the last 20 years, as a youth development organisation, we have grown pretty exponentially. We operate in different centres all across, I was about to say the world, that is definitely not true, just across the North Island. We have become a really big, really well-respected youth development organisation nationally, but what makes us good at what we do is that we are deeply committed and grounded in the communities that we serve. We are run in local centres by local staff, with local managers, with local people who are deeply rooted within the community that they serve. That is something that is unique to Zeal and that we will not move, because we know that the best youth development is run by community, for community, right here in the heart of the community. I would love to share with you just some highlights from the last few months. At the end of last year, we went through a really robust review process of our operations over the last 6 months, and we put together quite a comprehensive report to council staff. I want to just take you through a really high-level version of that. Forgive me for the high-levelness, but we have limited time. We were really proud that council have acknowledged with us that we have well and truly met our contractual requirements. And in some cases, we have exceeded them, which is something that we're really proud of. So we just wanted to share, I guess, some of those highlights with you. I was going to say this morning. Forgive me, I have terrible eyesight, so I can actually not see what's on our screen right now. So I'm just going to refer to what's in front of me. I've got the same thing printed out. I wanted to start with some numbers.
Sorry, Brittany, would you like a screen? I can bring my screen down if you'd like.
That is so lovely, thank you. But
Yep.
I've come prepared. I've printed it out, so I've got it in front of me. I knew there was a chance I wouldn't be able to see it, but here we go. Let's start with some numbers. Here is just a list of some of the activity that has been happening over the last 6 months. This is a reporting period from July until December last year. And forgive me if you know some of this, I'm just aware that some people don't, and this is the heartbeat of what we do at Zeal. We run what we call afternoon hangs. It's an open access drop-in space that any young person throughout the district can access anytime on their own terms. It is a beautiful place of belonging and safety and connection where young people can come in, find community, and receive high quality youth development support if they want it. It is the thing that holds all of Zeal together. It's beautiful. If you haven't been to an afternoon hangs, I would love to invite you to come and have a look at it. Please let us know if you're coming so we don't freak young people out. But it is a beautiful, thriving, diverse community of just young people finding belonging in an open space. Across the last 6 months, we have had over 1,400 visits into that space, which we think is pretty amazing. We've run a bunch of different creative programs. These programs change depending on what young people tell us they are interested in and want to learn. Those creative programs are hugely important for fostering confidence and new skills development and helping young people take like steps of bravery into something that they often can't access in other spaces. We run, both Zeal runs these and we partner with Work Ready Kapiti, a bunch of work readiness programs, which young people tell us is like a pretty consistent fear of theirs, is that they are so aware that they are, for some of them, finishing school and looking into the future can be a really like scary and just unknown space for them. So we're trying to wrap around that moment of their life as much as we can and ensure that young people are exiting high school with the baseline skills they need and to move into employment if that is what they choose, and then we support them through that process. We have been present at a bunch of Kapiti events. We know that that is really important to the community. There's amazing events here. And we know that it is really important that we are present at those, and we are partnering with council to make those great and to make them accessible for young people. I realise I've just totally left out the numbers, but hopefully you can see them in front of you. We've also run a bunch of events. Again, if you've never been to our Musicians Lounge, please, we would love to have you along. It is a time where the building is thriving. It's an event that is completely directed and run by young people. It's an opportunity for young local artists to be on stage and perform their hearts out and use their beautiful skills and mastery to put on something amazing for their community and their friends. It's also a great, healthy place for young people to be on the weekends. Alongside that, we have piloted some we call them Zeal Nights. It's basically afternoon hangs, but in the evening. This is something that we have been trialling because we've heard a request for more activity during the weekends and holidays, and we know that this can be, I was going to say a hard moment, not a hard moment, just a moment where young people have choices, and we want to help. We want to help them make really, really healthy choices and be present in healthy spaces. We have been going bananas within schools. We've done a whole bunch of activations and lunchtime games and karaoke and crazy things with young people. The reason why we do that is we want to make sure that every young person across this district knows that there is a place of belonging for young people, that they are welcome at. And we know that if they meet some of our staff first, that the sense of welcome is going to be so much greater when they enter our building. We also believe that we can play a really healthy role in shaping and driving a positive youth culture within schools. And we hear from schools that, you know, sometimes that can be a hard thing for schools to do, but somebody else can come in and help them do that. We've also heard some feedback for some increase in holiday programming. We have absolutely done that. We have opened up our hang space over the holidays. We've run different creative programs, just trying to make sure that there are open, accessible spaces for young people during those times. Those are some of the numbers. All of those numbers add up to over, and I really want to stress over because this number on our screen is the absolute minimum. We know we do our absolute best to capture everything that we possibly can, but we also want to tread a very fine line where we don't treat young people like they are numbers, and that the relationship comes first. So sometimes young people aren't recorded, but over that 6 month period, there were at least 3,000 times where young people had a moment or an experience or connected with our Zeal staff. And what some of the data that I'll take you through shortly, what that suggests is that they are having positive, meaningful interactions with youth development specialists where they feel loved, they feel seen, they feel cared for, and they feel connected to their community. that is something that we are really, really proud of. For the next few slides, I've just picked a bunch, just a couple of things that based on previous conversations that I think are important to this table. One of those is that we currently have, I'm really, really excited about this, we currently have 20 young people participating in the decision making and the leadership of Zeal. This is a key principle in youth development, and we've really ramped this up over the last few months, and it's so awesome to see young people stepping into leadership roles within our organisation and handing over that decision-making power, because we know that that is what is best for them, and that they know what is best for them. That looks like school reps in the colleges, it looks like an events committee, it looks like a general Zeal committee who feed into what we should be doing and where we should be going. The next one is that we have had a 110% increase in our facility usage. We are very aware that we operate a big black box. And while we get to see every day that it is full and it is thriving, I'm very aware that if you are from the general public, it looks like a black box, and it's very hard to tell if people are in it. But we have really tried to open that resource up to the community and make sure that it is being as best utilised as what it possibly can. That has resulted in a huge increase in facility usage. Some of that looks like a partnership with Work Ready Kapiti, who are now using our space. Looks like Homeschool Network, who are using our space. It looks like opening more on weekends and in the school holidays, and a few other partnerships that have really meant that the building is being more utilised, which we are really stoked about. The next thing is that this is something that Council asked of us, and it's been really awesome, is to take steps towards bringing the wider youth development sector together. We are very aware that we're a big organisation and we really want to play an active role in helping bring that together. And we started that a few months ago, where we brought in who's currently on our staff, but he is a youth development guru across the country. His name is Matt Renata. He works for, Sophie's nodding, he works for Aotearoa at the same time, which is the peak body for youth development in New Zealand. He's on our staff, but we brought him in to offer a free training for our staff as well, because these trainings are something that we should be continually doing if you even remotely work with young people. And that was delivering training in Mana Taiohi, which is the national youth development strategy, which every youth development organisation should be operating under, and the New Zealand Youth Work Code of Ethics. It was amazing to just see people come together in the same room and really start that collaboration and network building. We're very aware that there's a lot of work to come in that space, but it was just amazing to see it happen. One of the things that we have been really proud of is when we went through this internal review process, one of the things that stood out to us is that 90% of young people involved with Zeal indicated that not only was it great value for them, but that youth development outcomes were being met. What's amazing about that for us is that we can take heart that the young people who are coming through our doors are having a great experience, but more than that, that great experience will turn into lasting change because youth development outcomes are being met. I'm just aware, have I not been speaking into the microphone? Okay, great, perfect. Sorry, I just realised it was pointing towards you, which would have been no good. Now I've lost my train of thought, which is brilliant, 90%. If we break, I guess, that idea down a little further, part of our reporting mechanisms is that we are really interested to know, and we need to know, if the youth development outcomes set out by this council are being met, and this is what young people are telling us. I won't go through them all, but these statistics align with the youth development principles that you have given us. For example, 75% have improved confidence and self-esteem. 70%, this is probably my favourite one, feel a stronger sense of belonging, because we know that that is the most crucial thing in youth development. You can read through them, but the other one that really stood out to me is that, and I feel nervous about this statistic, and I want to be clear that we only have the information that young people give us, but from what they gave us, 100% of participants rated our programs positively, which is deeply important to me as the manager, because I want to be certain that every young person, we can't be everything for a young person, but every young person who comes into contact with us should be having a positive experience. Outside of, I guess, impact for young people, we are very aware that funding is incredibly important, not only to our organisation, but it's a tough moment for the country on this one at the moment. Over that 6-month period, we worked very, very hard on this, and we were able to bring in an additional $90,000 outside of our operating budget, outside of what was budgeted at the beginning of the financial year, which for us is encouraging, because it's an increase into the youth development that can happen within this district, and it is something that we will continually focus and work really hard on. One last thing from me. Something that has been really important to us over the last few months, we've really been in a moment and in a time where we are looking forward, because we are aware that we have been operating for 10 years, and it makes sense for us right now to really be taking stock, evaluating, and ensuring that whatever Zeo looks like going forward, that we are doing everything we can to be the best for our young people. One thing that we got some really helpful feedback on was that we needed to be more connected outside of young people and outside of our operating model to the wider Kapiti community. We have had limited capacity in that space, but we absolutely acknowledge its importance and the role that that plays in positive youth development. So given that, we have brought on the wonderful Laz, because he's amazing, but we have employed him recently to really build capacity for us in that area, and to make sure that we are continually opening channels for community, for stakeholders, for parents, for young people, for schools, for anybody who are involved with young people, to have great relationship and a great route of feedback to us. So he has been busy over the last few months, and I will hand it over to Laz.
Kia ora. Kia ora hoa. So supposedly, given my expertise in youth development and community engagement, Zeo had employed me to review their current operations and impact across the south of the district. This has included feedback from young people, because why wouldn't you? Internal staff, community members, elected councillors, deputy and assistant principals, career advisors, and a Māori Health kaupapa organisation. After many coffees, probably more my side than their end, and after much discussion, sharing of kōrero, we collated and we reflected on the many kōrero. We decided we will split the following kōrero into 2 parts. Obviously, with Britt being here, she holds the heart and the outworkings of Zeo close to her, and so she'll share a little bit about that and the refreshed approach, and then I will comment on I'll comment at the end in terms of our recommendations in regards to youth development provision. Take it away, my friend.
Amazing, thank you. Les has been doing some amazing work, and we are so grateful that he is now part of our team. Given the mahi that he has been doing, and I guess the opportunity that we found ourselves in to have access to some pretty amazing, well-rounded feedback, we are at a moment as an organisation where we are looking forward to the future. I want to acknowledge, and I absolutely respect, that there are some very important decisions ahead of this council in the coming week. This is not to influence that at all. We are just are aware that we are still an operating organisation, and it would be foolish for us to not be looking forward to the future and make sure that we are ready and that we are as prepared as what we possibly can be. So with that in mind, we just wanted to share not the full scale of that, but just a couple of things that we will be implementing going forward that we believe will be important to this table based on previous conversations.
I'm just going to jump in there for a second and just
Yeah.
say, feel free to influence, and you're in an advocacy role. That's why you're here, and that sort of stuff. So whatever you want to share with us, this is the time to do it.
Amazing, thank you. You've thrown me. We will come back to that because I definitely have some thoughts. Thank you. The first thing that we wanted to talk to is that come FY26, we will have a refreshed team on the ground delivering in Kapiti. Over the last few months, we have made some internal changes which have seen a change in our local leadership. And we are really excited about the capacity that that is going to bring into our team going forward. The next thing that we wanted to table, and I understand that there may be some mixed reactions to this around the table, and I just want to preface it by saying we simply want to open dialogue about it, is that we are currently reviewing the appropriateness of our current venue. Our venue is big and beautiful and so purpose-built, it's almost become not fit for purpose. We built that building 10 years ago for a slightly different operating model. And what we want to make sure going forward is that there's not a better option out there that allows us to reduce costs in that area, because the rising lease costs we fear are becoming unsustainable. And we personally would love to redivert that resource into more youth development provision. So we wanted to table that to say that we would love to have a conversation with council about that. We fully understand that you have a huge stakeholder within that conversation. And we just want to make sure that we have the best possible home for rangatahi. And we believe that we can still achieve that great sense of belonging and that incredibly warm, welcoming, safe, open access space. But we want to make sure that there's not a more financially viable option out there. Hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to ask me a million questions about that very soon. The next thing we wanted to table is that this is coming out of a place of where we are looking forward to what is the next iteration of Zeal, because the district has changed, young people have changed, and we want to make sure that we are reshaping and we are evolving as an organisation to make sure that we are serving young people the best we can in that slightly changed landscape. And something that we have heard from a bunch of stakeholders, including young people, is that an increased presence in local villages would be of great value. We still do not want to lose our central hub and a place that young people come back to, but we would love to see an operating model that is almost like Zeal is in your neighbourhood, because we want to scream to young people that we are open and we are accessible and we are there for them. So that is something that we're exploring at the moment.
Sure, mate. Well done. Beautifully said. So moving on to kind of youth development provision. So these are the things that we felt were coming across overwhelmingly, and we've separated them into kind of 4 key ideas or 4 recommendations that we would encourage council to prioritise for the youth development provision for the south of the district here in Kapiti. So as you can tell, Britt does really well with just like bullet note stuff. I do the opposite. I write up my stuff I'm going to say, so I apologize if it seems like I'm not engaging face to face, but I appreciate your patience in regards to that. So the first one being that there be a central hub for rangatahi and Kapiti to remain. So this supports the voices of both young people and stakeholders for the need the need for a space that is youth-centred and youth-focused, creating a strong sense of belonging, identity, and connections for young people to other young people within this district. That's come through quite strongly. The second one is village activations specific to the 5 pearls of Kapiti, another new term that I've recently heard, pearls. That's beautifully worded. A reoccurring theme is that accessibility has been a challenge for young people who live within the 5 pearls of Kapiti with limited transport options to spaces that they perceive would be beneficial for them. One young person commenting in a recent hui that they would love to come to what is being offered, however, is unable due to the limited bus transport from where they live. Given the unique makeup of this district, youth development provision needs to prioritise being able to activate spaces within the pearls or / villages to connect with both young people and the village who may not have access and or ability to. An activated youth development network. Collaboration and cohesion is key in ensuring there is better shared responsibility and care for young people across the district. While youth development provision speaks to the social and recreational space for young people, we have learned that there are other spaces where young people exist in which we can support and provide other like-minded organizations to bring about youth development expertise, and vice versa. It's a two-way, it's not a one-way. From our corridor with various stakeholders, there is definitely interest to explore this further. This will also diversify our reach within the youth population and allow expertise from other areas of youth engagement, creating a community of practice within the youth development provision. Last, but definitely not the least, Youth Development Joint Committee to be established. The relevance and approach to youth development needs to cater to the changing landscape and environment of young people. This supports the need for a Youth Development Joint Committee to be established where ongoing conversations and discussions will happen, ensuring youth development provision, practice, and approach responds to the changing landscape of youth here in the district. I'll leave it up to my colleague here to close this off.
Amazing. Thank you, Laz. Laz has just outlined our recommendations for youth development provision going forward. I want to acknowledge that they are well, to us they are really simple, but that is what the resounding feedback from most people that we talk to is. So we really wanted to table that for you. I guess the last thing that I wanted to say is thank you for your partnership. I am new to this conversation relatively. It doesn't feel new anymore, but I've never sat before you before. And I want to acknowledge, because I think everybody in this room is aware of it, is that this partnership hasn't always been easy. But we are here today because we genuinely care about the young people in this district. I am not interested in anything else. I know for Laz and I know for our staff on the ground, we are here solely because we care about the well-being of the young people who you also serve. And so we are here today to listen, to learn from you, to answer any questions that you have, and I really welcome you all. I'm sure you've got questions. I would really, really love to hear them. I can't promise you that I'll have all the answers, but I will do my absolute best. Kia ora.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. A lot to take in. But excellent presentation. Thank you. And look, it might seem that we are looking at, we've actually got all this presentation in front of us here. This was put on Hub, and it's a bit like yourself. Some of us can't necessarily see that. Put on Whiplash turning around. But anyway, look, I'll open the floor up for some questions. Nigel, if you care to start.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that you guys are doing. It's fantastic. The numbers that you're getting through is terrific, and I understand you've been meeting all of the KPIs in terms of the contract with council. I guess the question for me is that if council funding wasn't ongoing, would Zeal continue to operate in Kapiti?
I love how that's your first question. Great question. To be honest, no. Purely because the type of operating model that we have right now is that we deliver your youth development service for you. If that was to not exist, then we would need to reevaluate what Zeal would look like going forward. And I don't want to commit to anything in a public meeting until we can go through a proper review process around that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Oh, no, not asking for anything. It's just a general heads up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, Nigel, I was expecting another question. Apologies for that. Lawrence.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. Fantastic to hear what's going on, particularly that, those figures are over a 6-month period. That's pretty impressive in terms of youth development and connection, and also the response that shows from our rangatahi to Zeal's involvement and connection to their lives. It's great. You talk about the next iteration for Zeal. I'm just wanting clarification. Is that specific to Kapiti, or are you looking at similar messages to what you're hearing here in Kapiti going on in terms of your other areas that you're involved in?
Yes and no. I have a unique role in that I work across every single centre. I would say that the needs of young people at a very broad level across our country have definite similarities, but there are absolute unique drivers here in Kapiti. And the biggest one, I think, is the genuine makeup of the district is very, very unique. Hence the slightly evolving operating model. I think that from what I hear from young people, there are different needs. Like I was talking to a young person the other day who talked about how much they and their friends, that their parents often working outside of the region, and so having lots of time after school outside of the home, that, for example, is super unique to this context. In terms of those changes that we just talked through, that's absolutely just specific to Kapiti.
Okay, great. Just a follow-up question for me. What do you think are the biggest challenges? You're talking about this next iteration. Part of that you're putting into a space around the joint committee, the working together, the networking, which some of that's dependent on other people's responsiveness, right? What other things would you see are your specific challenges in that iteration of moving forward for Zeal? What would be those challenges, do you think? I don't want to...
Specific to Zeal?
Specific to Zeal.
I think in terms of, sorry, just to clarify, are you talking about those two last recommendations around the activated network and the joint committee?
I'm meaning around your iterations as an organisation. You've outlined 3 things that you're looking to shift and change.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges in those shifts and changes for you as an organisation? I guess I'm trying to
Gotcha.
figure out how easy is it. I know it's never easy to pivot, to shift. I mean, you've been doing something for 10 years in a particular model. I know from organisational cycles that go on, there is always this process, but these challenges. Have you identified what you think would be the biggest challenges in that?
Yes, sorry, I now understand your question.
Sorry, it was being my clarity.
No, you're fine. Look, I think that having a change in building is going to be massive. That's massive for us internally, and it's massive for young people who have found a sense of belonging in that place, and it's massive for the generations of young people who have come before them. That undoubtedly will have challenges. I just think that we have an absolute duty to explore that pathway, because the building is becoming a financial liability, and we have to be real about that. We have negotiated with the landlord, and we are not making any headway there. So we have to pursue that, and that will come with challenges. We also totally acknowledge what we're talking about here is not a complete shift in our operating model, but it is an involvement, and with that will be a test and learn process. The activating youth development within villages it's not completely new to Zeal Kapiti at all. It's just turning up the dial on them, really. But there absolutely will be a period of test and learn. Alongside that, a challenge that we have as an organisation at the moment is there is a huge political shift nationally in the type of youth development that is being invested in, and that is almost up in the air at the moment. And so there's access to wider funding that is a little unknown at the moment in terms of growing into that space. Those are kind of the key things that would be challenging. In terms of our on-the-ground operations, our staff are really excited about this because they hear, it reflects, some of it's coming from them, it reflects what young people are saying to them. And so in terms of energy for it, we are up for the test and learn because the district is evolving and we have to evolve with it.
Awesome, thank you. That's me in terms of my questions at the moment. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Other than saying congratulations, thanks for 10 years for Zeal. It's not signalling the end because relationships don't get cut off just like that. And I know that our Connected Communities team is working pretty closely with you, and that will continue through this next process. But just wanted to thank Zeal for coming in at our request 10 years ago to do what you have done for our young people. I don't think we can underestimate the impact on young people's lives over that 10 years. I could probably name multiple people who have been impacted by Zeal's involvement in their lives and continue to be impacted even though they've moved on from Zeal, but reflect on that. So thank you for what you're doing and done.
Just checking lights finished there. Well spoken. Rob.
Well, thanks, Martin. Les, Brittany, thanks for coming in today, and I'd just like to acknowledge the work you're doing. You're the absolute glue to society here, keeping it together with our young folk. You're an inspiration, and I really enjoyed your reference to the 5 pearls of Kapiti, Paikokariki, Raumati, Paparamu, and Waikanae, and of course Aotaki. And really interested in your village concept, where you can look at the respective villages, future design implications. As an architect for 40 years on the coast here, we've been looking at that, and chair of Kapiti Youth Support, been watching this very closely. And would it be or is it too preliminary at the moment? Would it be good to look at respective smaller facilities for youth, like getting a house and relocating it to a central part of a village, respective village, and look at the local village concept for your accommodation, so you have 5 pearls of Zeal?
Nothing is off the table,
Right.
is what I would say to that. We have started conversations with council staff around how we can tie into existing council facilities, for example, like if new libraries are being built, can we you know, is there a conversation about how we can make that really accessible for rangatahi? Can we tap into this? This is all so preliminary, so forgive me, but can we tap into local existing hubs and spaces and places where young people already congregate and help support that and help wrap around it so that it's a really safe and beautiful place for young people? Are totally up for a house. Yeah, nothing is off the table.
Yeah, we're just talking numbers, aren't we, really?
100%.
And
yes.
that can grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you once more.
Excellent, thanks, Rob. Hurawai, just see your hand up there. My apologies for not acknowledging it earlier.
Kia ora, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Oh, perfect. I do have 4 questions, so I'll just sort of start with the smallest one. And apologies from myself, I'm coming into this completely cold. I've never actually, I mean, I've seen your Zeal building, but I've never actually gone into it. So just sort of starting off with this, hopefully the easiest question. Just firstly, how is Zeal defining youth rangatahi? Like, is that something as per the KCDC contract with you, or like in my head, I'm thinking under 18, but I just want to make sure. How does Zeal define youth in your service provision?
Great question. It's defined differently in a bunch of different places. I believe in our current council contract, it's 12 to 24. We absolutely have a real focus on late intermediate and high school aged young people. That is really our specialty and what we focus on. We have, as an organisation, actually decreased that age over the last few years out of an acknowledgement that some of the issues that young people are facing are hitting at a younger and younger age. So we have made that slight amendment.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, in your slide, when you referred to over 3,000 visitors in the last period, sorry, I've got what period you were referring to. Do you know how many of that are unique visitors? Because I'm assuming some of them would be repeat visitors.
Yes, absolutely. And to be really clear, it's 3,000 visits, not visitors. They are not unique. It is really hard because it's an open access space, to get real clarity on those unique visits without making young people feel like we are recording them and it's not a free-flowing, accessible space. What I can tell you is that over that 6-month period, the number of regular, unique young people increased by 80, and that on any given week, our afternoon hangs program, for example, can have anywhere from minimum 25 young people right up to, we actually cut it off at 65 because of health and safety within the building. Over the last few weeks, it has exploded, and we are hitting plus 60 every single day, which has been amazing. But that 3,000 number is not unique visits. It is the total number of visits.
Perfect, thank you. And thirdly, because sorry, I was in the elevator when it was referred to before, but could you please expand on just because I'm keen to sort of understand it in the youth homelessness space that I'm working in, but I'm just keen to understand what are, say, 2 or 3 of the biggest drivers that are unique to Kapiti, or from what you're seeing as an organisation, around what is driving young people to seek out your services?
Yeah, probably there's probably not a lot to do for young people here in Kapiti, I guess, and there probably is, but probably not to their knowledge. And so that's probably been the big driver, to be honest. Again, highlighting the point that Britt made earlier, that we have found there for a lot of young people, parents are working in other cities, and so end up with no one to go home to, which is quite an important factor when considering youth development. That the adult is present, or an adult is present for young people, to make them feel like, you know, they are loved, cared for, and so yeah, so that's probably been the biggest driver that I've come to reflect on and probably picked up in the feedback that's been consistent. Yeah,
In terms of services, sorry, in terms of services to Zeal, are you guys like a word of mouth type of service, or is it like a referral service?
We are not a referral service officially, so we absolutely work collaboratively within the sector, and are absolutely willing to have young people referred to us. The thing that is unique about Zeal, and the thing that we that I believe sets us apart and makes us a meaningful opportunity for young people, is that we are what you call open access, which means that you do not have to go through a system to get to us. You can literally walk through the front door. One of the hardest things for young people navigating, particularly the health sector and often the social sector, is that once you identify that you have a need, which for a young person is a huge step within itself, and then you make the decision that you want to gain support with that need, which again is another mountain for them to climb, they are often hit with waiting lists and different hoops that they have to jump through to be able to access the help that they need. That is what is unique about Zeal, is that we don't operate like that. You can literally walk through the front door.
Great, thank you. And I think probably my last one's more of a sort of comment rather than sort of like a question, but I think it'd be quite interesting, and it's probably just the fact that I'm coming in cold on this subject, but it'd be quite interesting to sort of see, 10 years after you guys have been operating, the sort of some of the long-term impacts of the, I guess, for lack of a better word, intervention in youth lives, as opposed to sort of like non-engagement via Zeal. Like I know where in your slide you referred to sort of like short-term self-reported outcomes, increased confidence, that kind of thing, growing peer networks. But it'd be quite keen. I'd be quite interested, just as a side note, obviously, the sort of the long-term impacts of like when somebody has that type of intervention, like you're referring to, Les. There's not much at home, so they go through Zeal, and maybe through that they've developed a sense of resilience or something that's allowed them to go get a degree in a job that they didn't expect or something. But yeah, no, but sorry. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Councillor Halliday.
That's quite a lot to unpack.
Can I just speak to that?
See it?
Because that is something we're really excited about as well. And I believe that come May, we will, don't quote me on the May, I'm pretty sure it's May, we will deliver a full 10-year report to this table to track that impact across the whole 10 years. So yes, we're very excited about that.
So I know Michael and Sophie, you've got to speak. I'm letting everyone speak. I think the stuff's important. But I'm just going to flag now, odds on we're going to be going over 12:30, more likely about 1:45 with regards to the housing hui as such. So just making you aware of that, that's all. Mike. Michael Moore, see your hand up there.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you okay.
All right. Coming in from Te Horo. Thank you, Brittany, and your team at Zeal. 10 years is an extraordinary tenure, and delivering these services is really difficult. It's a complicated area to work in. We know from a lot of things that happen in the youth space. I can cite just recently a lot of the boy racer or young person racer activities in our community up the northern area in Otaki and Te Horo and Waikanae. It's really difficult what's driving that kind of antisocial behaviour. So the little good that can come out of groups like yourself and Kapiti Youth Support is really, really important. I'm going to touch a little bit on and ask about a bit more what Hirawai was asking about, and how you reach out to promote your program and to get people in your door and to connect with your program. So that's my kind of first question. How do you actively go about that?
Yeah, amazing. There's a myriad of different ways. A lot of our programs that we run, we get young people are referred to us from schools, and that is a huge catchment for us, where we believe that every young person who interacts with us, whether or not it's a program or a referral to a youth worker or whatever, that we are weaving them into the wider Zeal whānau if they want to be. So every time we're interacting with a young person, we are doing our utmost to weave them into that supportive community. We have pretty active relationships with local schools where we are visible all the time. That's part of that lunchtime activation to make sure that young people know who we are and where we are. Social media is massive. That is like a huge thing that just a really great tool to be able to access young people. We excuse me, a bunch of it comes through different community relationships, like making sure that we have a relationship with KYS and with other youth development orgs and other health organisations and anyone basically who has any reference point with young people. It constantly evolves and changes. For example, like our Work Ready programs at the moment, that is coming from straight referral from schools, is schools are identifying these young people could really do with some extra support, and so then we go and wrap around them. And then once you are in Zeal, you are welcome to all of Zeal. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's great. Fine with that, Mike?
Great, that's good. I'll just finally wrap up by talking about, I've been volunteering with on...
Sorry, Mike, unless you've got a question, I'm going to have to wind you up because we're already way over time with this at the moment.
I just wanted to make a final statement. Thank you, Councillor Halliday. I've been working with Te Kahu 2, which is a restorative justice program, which is kind of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, and your program and KYS and others working at the other end, which is really important that we invest and the community widely invest in these programs. So thank you for everything you've been doing.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Sophie and Kim, to go, but if I could ask you to keep things pretty succinct, would be appreciated.
Yes, thank you. Kia ora, Councillor Halliday. We'll keep it very succinct. I love what you both do and the passion and energy with which you do it. It's have loved hearing from you. So thanks for coming down. First question, you talked about the reason why the facility usage is upped so much, 110%. Do you have any insight as to what the reason behind the hangs kind of numbers increasing a lot? Because it sounds like, as you say, having 60 or upwards kind of every... do you have any insight as to why those numbers have kind of exponentially increased as of late?
Yeah, great question. Hangs numbers always go like this because we have this like thriving youth community that we are doing our best to keep up with, and numbers are exploding. And then we're doing our best at the same time to make sure, like, at the end of every year we visit as many Year 8 classrooms as what we possibly can so that they know by the time they're Year 9 who we are and how to access us. But sometimes within that, there's groups of young people who move, who like graduate out of the school system. And so it pretty consistently goes like this. Just the moment we feel like it's going, boom, we are out there making sure we are reconnecting. At the moment, it's thriving, and it has been for a really, really long time. We are just always conscious that we never rest in that, and that we're very aware that young people age out, and so we want to make sure that we're still accessible to that younger audience. Does that answer your question?
No,
I feel like
really
I'm
does.
rambling now.
No, that does answer the question. Thank you. And in terms of kind of this next phase as council evaluates its role in youth development provision south of the district, and kind of who is the provider of that ongoing, does Zeal hope that there would be kind of a commitment directly again to Zeal for another period of time, or do you feel the organisation's open to kind of over the next set of months figuring out what that looks like and being a really active and important player in that, alongside, as you said, other organisations too? Is that kind of a level of commitment that Zeal would be content with, or are you hoping for some assurance as to continued provision over a long period?
Great question. To be frank, we always want assurance because assurance gives us the ability to plan and prepare well. In saying that, we absolutely understand and respect the process. And at the end of the day, yes, we work for Zeal, but we are in this room because we care about young people. And we would not do our jobs if that was not the case. And so whatever process council deems appropriate, we fully support and back. we also know that we are not the only people who are out there advocating and working beautifully with young people, and we are absolutely really keen to make sure that people are represented at the table. So both and, if I'm really honest. Of course we want assurance. We absolutely respect the process and will work with you however you need us to.
Awesome. Kia ora.
Appreciate the question, Sophie. That's something I was wondering about as well. So thank you for the answer on that one. Kim?
I think a lot of my question has been answered because my question is around the development network, which I see as like a key part to this. So some of the barriers we see for collaborating is actually getting organisations to collaborate. Some of those barriers are caused by how we fund people. So the funding is siloed. And then how does your model, if you could speak to how your model is going to ensure that each organisation is able to act autonomously, because like you said, different horses for different courses, so kids respond differently to different organisations and different services. And also the one thing that I always see is that we get collaboration at a high level, but that high level is very broad. How do we get common goals at a transactional level as well? So we're actually getting more direct impact into some of these things that we're doing, rather than just getting the puffy vision in the sky. Actually, how are we all working towards these 10 kids getting out of their circumstances? So what would your vision around the development network?
I'm answering all the questions, but I'm going to go for it. Look, this is something that we are really passionate about because it is a key principle in youth development. Youth development doesn't work in silos. It just doesn't. We believe that council needs to play a really active role in facilitating that, and I know that council staff are really working on that, because you're right, funding plays a dynamic there, and we are really aware of that, and we want to be respectful of it. From my experience, forgive me, I'm trying to answer really fast because I'm conscious of time. From my experience, collaboration is a word that we really throw around. I think collaboration needs a really solid strategy around it. Getting organisations in the room together and saying, there you go, work together, does not work. It doesn't withstand time, it doesn't withstand personnel changes, and it ultimately doesn't meet community needs. So we absolutely back collaboration. We know that we cannot be everything to a young person, but alongside other people, we can help fill as many gaps for young people as what we can. So our thoughts on that, on activating that youth development network, is that it is so essential. We don't believe that we should lead it, but we will do whatever we can to help it thrive. It just needs a really solid strategic approach. My experience is that people on the ground are so amazing at it. It's at these levels where we really need to get it right. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think your answers have actually been quite excellent. I think towards the end there, because I think you've been talking, you've actually started to cut through some stuff and as such. So just recapping on that one, it's great to hear the no on the funding. From my perspective, identifying that the building becoming a financial liability, the fact that you have your 4 points with regards to how we potentially move forward, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're open to collaboration and working with our council officers with regards to 100%. What does good look like as we move forward, which I'm picking it, and that predetermining it's going to be a different model than what it currently is for us in Kapiti. But I think Zia, with the background that you have here, the passion that you have here as well, I'll be very surprised not to see you as a player in that space. So very much looking forward to seeing how that works. We've got our team's been brought up to speed with regards to capacity. This is a very good time to be going through this process for us, and we're looking forward to working with you collaboratively as part of that. And thank you very much for coming in with regards to the presentation as well.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, and apologies for the lateness. I feel responsible.
No apologies whatsoever. That's been very, 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 very helpful and useful.
Amazing.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Kia ora.
Thank you. Kia ora. Rightio, gentlemen, thank you for your patience down the back there with regards to the allocation of social housing in Kapiti. As I said, I think this meeting's going to go a little bit longer than anticipated. My apologies for that. But because of the type of deputations we've had, I thought it was important to have those conversations. But I also want to make sure that we're not rushed here as well, because this is something we've been talking about for a while. Yeah, without further ado, please join. Might need three. Darren, maybe you might need to be down that way. Yeah. Sorry, Darren, we love you. Don't worry. Just what's we got?
Kia ora team, I'll just say I'm here filling in for Chris Purvan as GM today, but in the interest of time, I'll just hand straight over to Stephen to introduce us.
Kia ora everyone. So this paper we're presenting today is focuses on the allocation of social housing in Kapiti. It comes from some concerns that have been voiced in the past about allocation of public housing to people from outside the district. We basically outline in the paper an approach that was taken in Otaki, where there was collaborative work between Ngā Hapu Otaki and MSD, or Ministry of Social Development, and Kāinga Ora, to ensure that local people in housing need were registered on the housing register and therefore eligible to be allocated new housing that was coming on. We're aware of 26 units that are currently being built on the old state highway, and they will be coming on later in the year. So we're proposing, have proposed to MSD that a similar approach be taken in Paraparaumu to ensure that local people are considered for that allocation. The paper also outlines or touches on recent changes, particularly around the emergency housing provision, and just makes you aware of what's happening in that space, and that we are monitoring the effects of recent changes to understand if there will be an increase in homelessness. So I'll take the paper as read, but if you have any questions.
Excellent. Any questions from the floor? Kathy, you kick off.
Thank you. In the report it says that the Kāinga Ora may now not be building, or sounds like they won't be, in Ramati Road. And you mentioned best value for money. What does it actually mean? I would have thought, if they built houses, that the people would come.
So yeah, what I'm pointing to there is a review that Kāinga Ora is undertaking of projects they have underway that aren't contracted, and Raumati Road is one of those. And I'm quoting from a report that basically says that it's currently under review, it may not proceed, and there is a potential that Kāinga Ora may divest that site in terms of the wider government priority and their assessment of value for money.
So will they build those units somewhere else in Kapiti?
No, I think that's unlikely.
I suppose the purpose of this report is to raise some concerns. There's been some quite big changes in terms of the focus for these agencies. Kāinga Ora has had its basically wings clipped, and in terms of new development, and that's off the cards in terms of new development. So big projects like the Raumati one are unlikely to proceed. We haven't had anything official, but it's very unlikely that that would proceed, and what they would do would actually sell that property to the market. The government is focused more on community housing providers, providing social housing in the community going forward. But again, that's a very tough process. There is only a limited number of homes that will be actually built through that. And it does create concerns for us in terms of the future provision of housing across the spectrum in the community, because we already have quite a deficit in terms of emergency housing, transitional housing, and social housing. and any stops in terms of more provision of that has an impact in the community.
I just wonder, because they've had this section for quite some time, and I was wondering when it was going to get a move along, but yeah, obviously. Thank you.
Lawrence.
Kia ora, thank you for the report. It's great in terms of the content, not great in terms of the outcomes for our community, would be my comment. Just one quick question. Obviously, council, and this is important to say, council invested quite a bit over the last 12 to 18 months in an emergency housing navigator role that was filling a gap in our community that we would consider probably as MSD's core responsibility, but they weren't doing it. Funding obviously is tight everywhere, and we had to withdraw funding, well, not withdraw it, but cease our ongoing support of that role, and they finished on the ground in December. Have we seen any marked shift in terms of interactions with council staff from people, reports of people being homeless in the 3 months since that ceased?
I'm tracking the reports coming through of homelessness, and recently I sense that there has been an increase in council staff recognising or having reports come to us around homelessness. The issue really is, what do we do then? We would often refer, well, almost every case, we would refer to the Rapid Rehousing Advocate. We no longer have that facility available, so very limited. We are raising with organisations like Salvation Army. We're contacting MSD directly. We really miss that service.
Okay, so there is, you know, anecdotally at least, we've got an increase of that kind of thing happening. This report suggests that that's likely due to the shift in government situations. We don't have that service available. I could probably add anecdotally, we're seeing more of it around our facility, or Kapiti Impact Trust's facility at the hub, living in cars particularly, or buses or vans.
Yep.
On our property after hours. So that is there. The other bit that I just wanted to ask about was in the implementation of a revised approach in Paraparaumu after the learnings in Otaki, which was great that we were able to get a central government agency to shift how they were doing things. Congratulations to the Otaki community for that work, and Hapu in particular. How is that landing with MSD here locally about Kāinga Ora, and changing their approach?
They have committed to doing that.
Okay.
So we're just looking for the right contacts.
Great.
Yep.
All right. So we hoping that we'll get those contacts in the next month or so. Is there a time frame on that?
The units will be coming on later in the year. Initially, they were talking about October. So we have some time, but yes, we're working on that, and hopefully in the next month or so.
Great. Thank you. Good work, team. Awesome.
Rob. Thank you, Lawrence.
Oh, thanks, Darren and Chris. Just referring to the Rangiora Road, the Kapiti Housing Trust and the Rangiora Road development, will that ease the accommodation or lack of accommodation on Otaki for the homelessness, and when do you think, what's the time frame for that?
You'll see the figures that the data that I attached to the report, and one of the really concerning things I have is that I've tracked the number of additional public houses that have been established in Kapiti since March 22, and there's only been 14 additional public houses that have been created in the district. We already have very low numbers of public housing, something like 250 units. So yes, when you talk about 21 units, it's targeting a different group, but obviously any assistance along the housing continuum helps. You'll also, I think one of the concerning things about the figures as well is the high amount of special needs grants for emergency housing in our district, compared to other districts. And you'll see in the last couple of quarters it's reduced. I think that's the effect of the changes the government's made. But in Kapiti, it's still very high. It's the only data set where the December 24 figure is still higher than the March 22 figure, which indicates to me there are blockages in the system, and there's a lack of permanent public housing for people to move out of emergency housing into.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Stephen.
Just going to add, like definitely the houses in Ringaru Road help the situation, but they don't solve these issues in terms of that homelessness and that end of the housing continuum. It's a very different market, and access to the sort of services and support people need is also a big thing that's outside the scope of the Ringaru Road property.
Oh, thanks, Darren. And I see Kāinga Ora have purchased some of the units in the development in Kapiti Road and Mohair Street. Will that sort of activity, is that continuing with them, and will that ease the problem?
When I ask them if they've done that, they say no. I assume they may have leased some units from people, but I don't see that we have an active program of new housing. And I think that the 20 odd units that are being developed at the moment, are being built at the moment, they'll be the last substantial amount that we'll see for some time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Nigel.
Yeah, thanks for this. I just noting the recommendations. I note the first one, and I'm really pleased that it's an acknowledgement that increasing homelessness appears to be a government policy at the moment, and that's pretty much what that says. And the current government's strangulation of essential funding in this area is something that also should be acknowledged, but I think it's important to soldier on. I mean, that high level of insanity is unlikely to continue past 2026, so I think it's really important that we don't just yield to these aberrant behaviours on part of central government and just continue doing what we do. So good on you guys.
Well put, Nigel. Lawrence.
Sorry, I forgot one of the questions I had was related to the data you've presented on page 14. I look at the comparison through there and the amount of money they're paying out. Is that per month that we're paying out? The government's paying out $600,000 or $700,000 a month?
Oh, that's per quarter.
So per quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's probably not a figure that's going to provoke a lot of angst around budgets getting consumed from central government. I was just wondering whether we could leverage the amount, because you compare how much they're spending here versus all of the others that you've presented, and I know you've presented a distinct group, but I also note that there was an article in the paper the other day related to affordability of housing, and Kapiti is still on the top of that at 45% of income being spent for first-time buyers. I note on the data you've got here, Timaru has a huge number of social houses, and they are the lowest in affordability issues in the country. Tends to say we've got houses in the wrong spaces. Maybe we should sell a few in Timaru and build some here. Is there anything that we can do in terms of presenting those figures, arguing a case? Tim Costley might not need to know about that, if he doesn't already.
The regions that I've selected here are based on the per 10,000 population housing register numbers to try and get some comparable. But you're quite right. When you look at other areas and you look at the amount of public housing that they have and around them as well, these figures really show some startling issues in Kapiti. And we've presented these to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, discussed it with them. What concerns me is I get the feeling sometimes that their allocation of where they're purchasing new housing services isn't really based on science, it seems to me. Because when I present these figures, I've had responses like, "Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it," which is concerning.
So I think we're keen to continue to advocate to MSD, MHUD and KO that there is an ongoing issue here, that the whole system is not working at the moment, and that's an ongoing underinvestment that they've made in the area. Obviously they did start to do more and they had more planned, but now that's been clipped. In terms of what we understand in terms of the community housing providers that are going to be allocated the 1,500 or 1,000 new units, there's unlikely to be much that comes this way because we're not considered to be a priority area. So the ability to sort of say, well, you're investing this money here in grants, is there a better way to use this money instead of just putting it into emergency housing? Is there different ways to do things? So definitely keen to continue to have those conversations. The fact that someone is monitoring it now and actually asking questions makes a big difference in terms of what's going before.
Who do I online? Just seeing you there. Your turn now.
Good. Sorry. Just trying to make sure that I'm balancing the hats I'm wearing, both as a employee of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development on this committee. So
Obviously, you
just trying to
potentially
make
have good
sure I
contact.
keep to what statements are public, which is fine. But I did have one question in relation to that comparative table, where you've got down the number of, I guess, applicants or grants as per the EHS&Gs. Were those unique grants? Like, because you can have the one person applying and receiving a grant multiple times. So I'm just, or was that just sort of total number received?
Yeah, I think it's important really to focus on the number of households, because that's a number distinctly at the end of the quarter, rather than focus on the number of grants, because you're quite right, there can be multiple grants allocated.
Yeah, and I think because, well, I mean, this was just make sure that where you were referring to there before about the government's announcement on the 1,500 homes being delivered, I think it would be useful, I think, to sort of either keep the conversations going or keep collecting the data and insights, because there will be some announcements shortly from the government relating to trying to understand better the housing need. I think what is publicly known or has been announced is that the minister is looking at reviewing broadly how the government is funding the whole housing system, because at the moment there's about $5 billion a year going into housing expenditure. Most of it obviously is through accommodation supplement and IRRS. But I think the government is quite keen to sort of explore how to get better value for money. So I do think it's definitely worth carrying on either the sort of conversations that you're having or data collection. But otherwise, if you do want to have another chat, happy to help out the team.
Great. Yeah, I think that collecting this data has been really revealing in terms of it really demonstrates the blockages, but also that even though everyone recognises that the number of people registered on the housing register is not a measure of demand, I think government continues to fall back on that as a reason, and it really concerns me too that we seem to get caught. So we've been caught. We convinced Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and Kāinga Ora to become more active in recent years. They were gearing up to do that, and now we've had the rug pulled from under us. So I'll be really keen to have more conversations.
Thank you, Huruai. I think getting some insights from you would be very, very helpful to the process. I've got a couple of questions. In regards to the scenario with Ngā Hapu up in Otaki working with council with regards to the people that were going into units, yeah, great piece of work and great result after a lot of kicking and screaming, I'm sure. I'm just a little bit concerned, and I just wanted to, that the iwi relationship in Otaki is a bit different than the iwi relationship down this part of Kapiti. So that buy-in from iwi as such with regards to that approach, is that going to be as fit for purpose, shall we say, as it was in Otaki? Yeah, certainly don't. Yeah, I'm just feeling around a little bit with that question at the moment.
I'm working with the iwi partnerships team to identify the appropriate people to talk with, and I'm not sure whether it might be that there might be social agencies that it might be appropriate to bring in as well. I think the commitment from MSD to work this way is important, and then we can build the best way to get the best result.
Obviously, we're conscious there's a lot going on in terms of different iwi across the district. So what we were keen to do is make sure that we have the appropriate connections, but that we can also provide the appropriate support we required as well, sort of thing. Because different levels of resources and capacity.
I know that was part of the approach north there as well, and that was a great outcome up there. Yeah, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're really taking a leadership role here with regards to the coordination of this conversation, shall we say. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes.
Yep, no, that's great. Look, I've got the word written down here. This is a hell of a frustrating, which it certainly is. We're up to 2.4% in the national average. We're still miles beneath the national average. So I dare say we've got the information at our fingertips. That's the whole point of doing the work that we've done. The housing team, you guys have done an absolutely fantastic job with regards to how we position ourselves. Do I dare say that we should be starting to go a little bit harder into the advocacy role with regards to what we want to see happen in our district now that we've got that supportive information sitting behind us? Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, I think it's really required.
Okay, that's good for the clarity on that. Okay, does anyone else have anything that they'd like to talk to in regards to this conversation? I'll take that as a no. Thank you very much, gentlemen. There is recommendations here, 2 recommendations here. Lawrence is happy to move those. Nigel's happy to second. All those in favour? That's passed. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Sorry for the delay in getting to you, but we've had some very interesting conversations this morning, and I don't want to think that the brevity of this one is any less important. In fact, if anything, I'd say this is one of the more important conversations we've had today about looking after our vulnerable people with regards to getting a roof over their head that's safe and secure. Thank you very much. Okay. I've lost my sheet. Oh, here it is. It's okay. I've been looking everywhere for it, but it's turned up again now. Okay, so we'll just quickly skip through this now. We've got number 7, leaves of absence. Any leaves of absence? No? Fantastic. Matters of an urgent nature. Haven't heard of anything? Fabulous. Members' items. Sorry, guys, I'll have to wait till the next meeting. And hopefully we'll create a little bit of space in regards to talking about some of the stuff that we might want to talk about, but I found today very, very interesting. Some great kaupapa that's come along, and some really, really good results are going to come from it. Allocations of social housing is done. 8. Number 9, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Rob moved. Lawrence second. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Fabulous. So closing karakia. Sorry, so burn through that pretty quick. Kia tau ngā manaki tanga ki runga I a tātou katoa. Kia hau te makihikihi I ki ana. Kia tau te kapu. Kia tau te reo. Kia tau te warua. Kia tau tau te Māori. Ki roto I a mātou mahi katoa e tini rā. Humie huie. Ka kie. May blessings be upon us all and our business be successful so that our words endure and our language endures. May the spirit be strong. May Māori be settled and balanced along with the activities that we all do today. Join, gather and unite forward together. Thank you very much for your participation today. Lunch is served out back, and looking forward to our next meeting as well. But I think a lot of things coming together at the moment, which is absolutely fabulous. Only 10 minutes over.